the lessons of the 2008 financial crisis. And, are we out of the woods? And my own reaction, and again, it's pretty hard to have a good prediction, but is that there are some danger zones here and there. And we have to take into account, I listed some of them. I'm going to develop a few of them. And you'd let me know, if we don't finish, that's okay. Let me say right away that, people will say, oh, we don't need finance. We see what has happened in 2008. That's a wrong idea. Finance is indispensable. It allows households, firms, and administration to borrow and hedge against various risks. Financial institutions also create savings products for the actors. Now, what went wrong in 2008 is actually a crisis of the state, a crisis of regulation. But, and I will come back to that, in the end, if you create the wrong incentives because you have a wrong regulation or a wrong supervision, then you are quite sure that some unscrupulous actors are going to take advantage of those loopholes and incentives. And they are going to exploit the system. So it's one thing you can blame the industry for doing the wrong things. Yes, there are some people who are not very honest and are going to take advantage of those wrong incentives. However, you don't have to, the state should not be creating this incentive in the first place. And I'm going to go very fast. I don't know how much you know about the crisis of 2008, but there are various causes for that crisis. One has to do with financial bubbles. By the way, politics was very involved. In countries like the US and Spain, the politicians wanted to have a very much construction, much build-up of firms. They wanted to have ownership of houses and apartments by many people, and they pushed banks actually to lend to real estate construction. And the following, what happened then, and in Spain that was also very dramatic because then there was a huge recession in Spain. The human cost was tremendous. Okay? That was one of the things. High leverage, maturity transformation. The financial institutions were fragile, especially the shadow banking sector, but also the retail banking sector. Evasion of capital adequacy requirements. What I was mentioning earlier is that the banks offloaded their risk to the shadow banking sector, to special institutions called the conduits they created on that occasion. Now this loophole has been closed, but that's important to know. And they have also turned useful products and processes into toxic ones. And that's also an interesting thing. Those products, to start with, are useful because they are insurance products. But then they were used by the banks actually in the wrong way. So credit default swaps, securitization, and the like actually were part of the crisis. So I'm not going to get into that. If you want more detail, I'll be happy to discuss that later on. So I already said that. In my view, the financial crisis of 2008 was a crisis of the state, disinclined to do its work as a regulator. And again, economic actors, they react to the incentive they face, and at least some unscrupulous actors will exploit the gap in the regulation to start swindling the investors and take advantage of the bailouts of the public safety net. Okay, now 10 years after, we are in 2018. Happy anniversary, by the way. We are in 2018, and have we learned the lessons? Yes and no. I think we have made progress in the framework, but the devil is in the details. Because it's one thing to have good regulation or decent regulation at the Basel level, for example, Basel III. It's another thing to have a good national implementation and a good actual supervision, because you have the international regulation, then you have the national implementation, and then the supervisors are actually implementing them. So you have three layers, and it's one thing to have made progress in one dimension. It's not clear necessarily that you have made progress at all. Now, what am I worried about? Well, many things. So they are different in different countries. So before I do that, and again, I don't know how much you know about prudential regulation, but there have been a number of changes in Basel III. BRRD is European regulation on recovery and resolution. Dodd-Frank is the US regulation. And if you look at things, we have better regulatory infrastructure. So now the regulation has been concentrated at the Fed in the US, which is tougher than some of the previous regulator. And actually that's why the US president is upset at the Fed. In Europe, we had concentration at the ECB, which we see how it works. You know, the jury is still out. But it probably is a good thing not to let, say, Spain regulate the Spanish banks. It's better to have some kind of centralized regulation in Europe.